Muliro. I'm hoping Wetangula is going to go to that family where I saw now a whole father is gone, going to leave children for the sake of me now launching my program. You must be ashamed at that time when you see a Kenyan on the floor, bleeding, dying, because of you to become a leader. 2017, us politicians must learn a lesson that it will be a curse to your family to celebrate, to jump, that people are dying and going to the grave for us to be leaders. It will be wrong for our country. And we must be very clear about it. For us to go and give Thanksgiving at Afraha Stadium is very different than celebrating. And I'm hoping my president is not going to celebrate, but to go back to that first ground where he started his prayers to say, God, remove us from the ICC, and now declare how he's going to move this country. As he said in his speech, the covenant, the nationalism, we want to see it now work. This is an opportunity for them to put Kenyans together, to make sure we walk a journey as Kenyans, where I can stand and say, I'm hashtag Mkenya Daima. I'll be very proud of that. But because the politician, and you know, I've realized, Gitonga, there's a very interesting side with politics in our country, where politicians assume we know we can go and psychologically just change the people's mind, tell them, oh, this is this. And people, Kenyans have started now realizing, Allah, these guys are joking with our country as we play politics, as we see things move. And they are now starting to look back and say, is this what a politician is saying? Can I now myself do my own research and realize, is he telling us the truth or is just joking with us? That's why you will go. I know there are some politicians, even now you're entering a region and you're being told, go. Even governors are being told, you have not been doing anything here, so why are you coming now? Even churches, you can see the ACK church decided no. And many churches are going to say, you're not going to come to church, which I've always said, don't go to church to play your politics. Go to church, pray like any other Kenyan, give your tithe, move. If you want to play politics, call for your meeting and do the politics, not on the podium of the church.
Okay.
And I'm very happy about that.
Kenyans at least are taking that. And I'm also reminded of the deputy president going to Kericho and being told that you have not kept your word. That was
fantastic. And I'm wondering why Kenyans are not seeing that. Kenyans are waking up. You can't just go to them and promise. No.
You've
promise and deliver. And I like the way we were put on spot with the deputy president. And he took it. He listened. He apologized. I'm hoping now politicians can apologize even to Kenyans as we move and do these things.
I'll come to you, Dismas, and we'll see whether we really have a new dispensation, politically speaking. But let me hear from Haron in regards to whether we have our finger on the issues that caused 2007-2008 post-election violence, because without that, then it becomes very difficult to cure when you don't have the cause.
Precisely. I think if you ask an ordinary Kenyan who is looking at the situation then, or not quite experts, but an ordinary Kenyan who's not a politician, they know where the problem lies. The problem lies in inequality. The problem lies in the first takes all, winner takes all and loser loses all policy of elections. That is where the problem is, and that's what Kriegler asked us to sort out. And that's what the new constitution was supposed to help us with. However, even though Beatrice is saying that we are in a new dispensation, I would only say that we are in a new regime, perhaps not even a new regime. I think it's the old regime that has new people, which has refused to move into the new constitutional regime that would have helped Kenyans get back to sort out the problems Magaya talked about. That how do we then ensure that we are all equal? The constitution, in terms of its aspirations and its values, some have been phrased in Article 10 and in the entire body of the constitution. Even if you look at the chapters regarding financial management, there are values entrenched in the constitution, which would, if properly adhered to by the managers of government, managers of state affairs, Kenyans would start feeling that we are moving and getting somewhere. However, the political class and the government has decided to look at the problem of 2007 and 8 and the justice system, including the ICC, through a political prism. A lot of financial resources were deployed to defeat the cases at the ICC rather than support the ICC to get justice. Ocampo and Besouda were not assisted by the state and state agencies to effectively investigate. Rather, they were frustrated because I recall there was even a case that was filed in court by some two businessmen, clients of my friend Irungu Kangata, who stopped Justice Rawal, who had been appointed by the ICC, from taking evidence from the provincial commanders of the police and the provincial administration at the time of the violence. That was made, that order was made in court without the participation or effective participation of either the civil society or the ICC itself. And the effort was frozen completely. You recall how much the Attorney General has been going to the ICC to side with the defendants, rather than state that the government of Kenya as a government has certain aspirations of justice, and it is going to cooperate with the ICC insofar as it effectively investigates and prosecutes these ones or any other that may be there that would be responsible. So the point I'm making is, our government, irrespective of the high-sounding platitudes our political leaders make in public, they make them for purposes of mobilizing their political agenda rather than justice for either victims or Kenyans generally. So the point I would like to make is, the government needs to retreat. The people need to reflect and see, what do we do? The decision of the court of the ICC is not even an indicator of a beginning of anything. It's actually a sad reminder that nothing ever changed from the date the violence stopped up to the date the cases ended or were terminated.
Okay.
What if I may conclude, the point I'm making is that the entire process from the 2007, 2008 until the day before yesterday, what transformed or evolved was the definition of the word victim. The victims that we talk about, those who suffered the violence, have now been turned to be the aggressors. The persons who were suspected to be the perpetrators and were finally charged before the ICC have since been transformed to be the victims of a justice system which they are considering unjust. But I would like to request that rather than celebrate that the cases have been terminated, they should pray for the country and not pray for their political future, but pray and say they are willing to sacrifice their own interests in favor of the benefit of all of us. Just like Dedan Kimathi, Gitu Kahengeri, Wamboyo Otieno and others sacrificed their lives for us.
Okay. Dismas, are we in a new political dispensation? Is that something that we are likely to see soon, or are we having just this replayed?
You know, it's important for us to accept reality and embrace reality. The relationship between politicians and voters, or rather Wanjiku, is just to secure a vote. And our politicians today, they don't have a moral direction. They don't have a moral compass. So they don't care whether you sleep on an empty stomach if you're a taxpayer. For them, what they're interested in is winning the next election. So I'm sure that our politicians, both in CORD and Jubilee, right now are having strategy meetings, trying to craft a message. What are they going to tell victims to secure their victory? So what Aaron is talking about, that is hoping there's going to be a revolution, a mindset among the political class in Kenya to secure Wanjiku's interest, that's all order. I can almost bet my head that after the next election, there'll be victims still wallowing in poverty, sleeping on cold floors while it's raining outside. And the senator has painted a very good picture. You can imagine, say, a farmer somewhere in Eldoret who has 10 acres, who had taken a loan, say, from a bank and put up an infrastructure, add several cows, and all the cows were killed, the relatives were slaughtered, and he's still at an IDP settlement right now. When he sees the people having high fives at the DP's home in Karen, when he sees governors running and celebrating while the guy is wallowing in poverty, it's really traumatizing. And what Aaron is talking about, that there's going to be a political revolution in Kenya, that indeed will be a political tsunami in the world. The relationship between our political class in Kenya today and the voters is just, they're just interested in your vote.
It's just the vote.
And the president, or rather President Moi once indicated that when you are looking at a voter, you can tell them whatever. It's like wooing a girl. You tell her whatever she wants to hear. Once she gives you the vote, they disappear. And I'm extremely disappointed. And one would be disappointed when the political class in Kenya, all of them today are being politically correct. They're saying justice has been served. But it's been served or no? Is it the person who lost their cows? Is it somebody who lost their relatives? Is it somebody who is nursing injury still at the National Spinal Injury Hospital? And you know, the energy that was dedicated to ensure that the ICC cases come to an abrupt stop, if the same energy had been deployed on sorting out the victims, then Kenya would be a better place. But as we look at all these issues, and Aaron says that we should have a local mechanism of trying to say what really happened and how do we celebrate a new beginning. That again, I think, is utopian. There is nobody today who is a victim who would go before any court, whether in camera, and say that I've got evidence I'm going to present. That will be an insane person. There's nobody who is going to testify and give evidence that is going to commit somebody to jail, whether he's a sitting MP, sitting governor, deputy president, or president. People are so worried, people are so nervous, and a number of witnesses have disappeared. So who would take to a podium and say that I saw maybe the local MC organizing something? That will never ever happen. So I think we now need, the way the senator has indicated, have a reflection and ask ourselves and speak to psychologists and social scientists that is it really possible to bury what has happened and celebrate a new beginning? And the way the senator has indicated, do these politicians ever spend a moment to speak actually with the victims? Because when you say that if you lost 10 acres, we are going to give you another money to go and buy 10 acres somewhere, maybe that's not what the victim wants. The victim probably went to maybe Naivasha or Eldoret, invested in a piece of land, because that was then his dream and aspiration. So by just giving them money and telling them to relocate, maybe that's not what they want. So for me, I really think that maybe we need to have a national conversation whereby we'll call a spade, if only victims will be reassured that you are not going to be penalized for calling a spade a spade.
Okay. Norman, let me come to you, and clear solutions as to what we must do as a country. The political class, of course, is taking a big chunk of the blame here, because even given some of the rallies we've had them speak some things, and you wonder whether they really remember what happened in 2007, 2008, because there are volatile statements that are made which polarize the country. What must we do to ensure that 2007 does not have a repeat?
I think one is money can never be a substitute for the quest for justice. It doesn't matter how much money you will give a victim. If that victim still walks daily and sees the perpetrator of the crime in his midst and nothing was done to him, that's how impunity grows, that's how it breeds, and that's how it spreads.
So in short, as long as we don't have anybody who's doing time.
As long as we have not indicted, prosecuted, and had convictions on the post-election violence at any scale, those ghosts of the 2007, 2008 will still remain. They will hound us for a long time. But two, there are already signs to start worrying. One of the critical features of the 2008 post-election violence was the question of police. That's why the police reforms was a critical issue. But the question as to whether those reforms has been undertaken in a manner that was contemplated, consistent with what the Constitution intended, is a different question altogether. If the emergence of the new brutal police state that we are seeing is anything to go by, then you have something to worry to going to
when you say the emergence
2017.
of a brutal police, what exactly do you mean?
If you look at the events at the University of Nairobi, what the GSU did, if you look at what the police were doing in the by-election in Malindi and in many other incidences, then you see.
Although with the University of Nairobi, to the defense of the police, they say that that is an old clip that is being used, so it needs to be verified, just to be fair to them.
Mike have looked at that clip with a lot of scrutiny. I can tell you there is nothing old there. It is a fresh clip.